Welcome back to the Longview PD On Air podcast. I'm Michaela Vaughn.
I'm Ladarian Brown.
And today, or our episode for February, our theme is from 1919 to today, race, law enforcement, and community trust.
That's right. And today, our special guest is our very own Deputy Chief of Operations Support in the person of Deputy Chief Montgomery. Glad to have you, sir.
Glad to be here.
And we also have our, I guess we can call him a good friend today.
Yeah.
Mr. Clent Holmes, who is also here. He's one of the people that's a part of the 1919 Remembrance Project. So glad to have you, sir.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here. I appreciate y'all allowing me to jump in.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on. So we're going to start, Clent, with you since you are part of the 1919 Project. We're just going to have you do just kind of a brief overview of the history behind it and what happened during that time for anyone who may know or may not know.
So there's a much broader context when you talk about the events of the 1919 Longview race riots. You could talk about the war. You could talk about where we were as a nation, World War I to be specific. But the events that happened here started with a relationship, actually out of Kilgore, where a black man was in a relationship with a white woman that erupted and led to his being lynched. That happened around June of 1919. Those events, for the most part, kind of went under the radar. And so when some leaders in Longview, two black prominent leaders specifically, learned about the events, they went to the authorities to try to figure out, hey, why is this not getting more attention? Why is justice not being served? And that's what kind of led to the eruption of the events in Longview. And so they go and they try to bring attention to the matter. One of those leaders by the name of Jones, he's attacked. Actually, it was right across from where the courthouse is today, there was believed to be a grocery store. He was attacked. And then another prominent figure, Dr. Davis, who was a physician, was seeing to his wounds, knowing that the situation was about to escalate. And so they got their community members together really to protect Jones and his house. Later on that night, a white mob comes. Firefight starts. The white mob actually loses that encounter because they weren't prepared for the community members that were at Jones's house to protect his house. The white mob goes and gets reinforcements, go to a fire station, ring a bell. And it's conflicting reports about how many people actually participated. Some reports say 1,000 plus, some say just many. But that is what probably is more accurately known as the riot, because when they come, after they lose their first firefight, they come and they're burning down homes, they're burning down businesses, they're running people out of the neighborhood. And so those are typically the events that when we say the race riot. There was actually only one recorded fatality, which actually happened later when the sheriff was going to address the father-in-law of one of the prominent leaders. Some reports say he was going to put him in protective custody. Others say he was going, with other intentions. Marion Bush was his name. He flees, and he's later found in the field dead. And so there's accounts that kind of tell the story differently, but that's the only recorded fatality, which is significant because typically with events like these, you walk away with a lot more deaths as well as damage. There was a lot of damage in Longview. There were a lot of homes, a lot of businesses, specifically in South Longview, specifically areas that were popularly known for being black, grocery stores, businesses, hangouts, and whatnot. And so anyway, as a result of that, martial law is enacted in Longview to kind of get everything under control for a number of days until it passes over. And again, a lot more details in that. So I would encourage anyone to please, research the story. There actually is a lot of information. And then our team, we're actually in the process of completing a documentary that will retell these events from the perspective of several. Yours truly, Officer Brown, is actually a part of that documentary. So please check it out. We finished the first phase, but we still have a number of editing and things not to do. But
I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah.
That's
You didn't
cool.
know I was a celebrity?
No.
I'm trying to tell you I'm somebody. So Clint, let's talk about what are the key moments people should understand that possibly led to things getting quote unquote out of hand with this one incident?
So the Longview race riot is actually one of about 24. So the tension in America at that time is extremely high. One of the things that we believe contributes to that tension is the return from World War I, because there were several black soldiers who went and fought thinking that, this would gain us a different type of status, and to come home and realize that that hasn't changed. But now you have black soldiers who are trained. Now you have black soldiers who are equipped. And I just have to imagine probably a little bit more confident in terms of protecting their own, protecting their property, protecting their family. So we know that's a contribution. We also know that the black community during that time had started selling their cotton elsewhere. They started working around the Longview system because of the disparities, because of the injustices. And I believe they were sending it straight to Galveston. So we know that also had an influence. I mentioned earlier that there was a relationship, which is very common with a lot of these events around the U.S. It's either an alleged relationship, an accusation of somebody doing something, sometimes made up. This was a relationship that I mentioned in Kilgore, but there was a publication from Chicago called the Chicago Defender that was very widely distributed in Longview. And one of the prominent leaders, Jones, he was a distributor of that magazine. And so the story came through Chicago, through this publication. And that's actually what really got things kind of in an uproar.
That's interesting to know that, a newspaper from all the way in Chicago was rather so widely spread and distributed here in Longview. We're nowhere near Chicago, so for that to be cheap.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and population then was 5,700, 31% black during that time, and Longview wasn't that big. So I'm curious, Clinton, I'm not sure. In your research, was there any sort of relationship, or is there anything referencing the police response relationships during those times, even leading up to that?
You mean the police response to the actual events?
Yes, or the relationship with the community. Was there anything related to that helped the situation, or just kind of ignored the situation? Do you have any history of that?
Yeah, so Dr. Davis, who was one of the two prominent leaders, when they first found out, it's interesting because you think about the time frame.
Right.
Of course, we know racism was widespread. I say we know. I assume that people would see the time frame and kind of put two and two together, because emancipation is only, a few decades away.
Right.
Longview's founding is literally right after that in 1870. That's important. I'm going to answer your question. That's important because I feel like when we talk about these events, people assume that it happened everywhere else. They assume Longview is not the South, right? Like that's Mississippi, that's Georgia. Well, no, in East Texas, all of those same things are true. All of the worst things that we read about slavery, about injustice, about lynchings. I mean, Texas has a very deep history with all of that. But to answer your question, the leader went straight to the mayor and the council, which is very interesting because in my mind, that's not how I would imagine it happening, which tells me, and I'm filling in blanks, he must have had a relationship.
Right.
Which tells me he must have had influence. He must have had their respect to just go and approach them like that. And there was some dialogue, because at one point in the story, he's asked, hey, can y'all just keep this on the low? Let us kind of work on this and smooth this over, and let's just keep this quiet. And he was like, no, we're not going to do that. So he's talking to the highest leaders of that day.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was really, really interesting in terms of the influence that black leaders had at that time.
So what is one lesson you think civic leaders and public safety could learn from this situation? So as leaders in our community, one of the things that I emphasize all the time is that the only way how you can learn from history, learn from the past, is you got to remember it,
right?
Good, bad, and ugly. But what do you think we could learn from this one incident?
I think this incident has all kinds of implications for today. I mean, there are some things that almost mirror what happened in that time frame. I think we have to talk about events like these truthfully. We have to talk about them honestly. This is our 250th celebration as a nation. And I think we should celebrate that, just like we did when we reached our sesquicentennial. That's celebration worthy. But I am a little more critical when I see us celebrating without talking about how we got here and why we got here and the less than glamorous aspects of our history that we can't just sweep them under the rug as if they don't still resonate today. And I'll even shout out Judge Stout, because we just recently, 4 or 5 months ago, honored this event with a historical marker on the courthouse lawn, was unanimously approved, and he's spoken very highly about how necessary it is that we talk about these things.
True.
But before then, they weren't. You can walk around Longview and not see any recognition during the sesquicentennial, and I looked for it. Celebrations, we saw the history, but it didn't talk about this. It didn't talk about the bus bombings. It didn't talk about the history of the black churches who actually are older than Longview and have been here longer than the city and have contributed. We have schools named after these figures. And so that kind of thing, it's uncomfortable, right? And it should be. But I think as leaders, we have the obligation to speak truthfully and learn from things like this.
And Michaela, Chief, y'all can, agree with the profession that we have as law enforcement. It has not always been a beautiful history professionally. But one of the things that I appreciate about the leadership that we have in our department is that, hey, we acknowledge the past that we have, and the reason why we acknowledge it is because it proves how far we've come. It's not so much to beat anyone up or to be critical of anyone currently, but it highlights the fact that we have progressed, contrary to what some may believe, a very, very, very long way. And with that, Chief, with talking about 1919 to now, when you look at the distance between 1919 and now, what is some progress that you think of professionally that stick out?
That's part of what Clent just said about having that information and knowing about it, especially in law enforcement, and for the people that we're hiring now to understand that history, where law enforcement history all over the country, but also specific to here in Longview, because that's where they're going to be working. So knowing that history, I mean, not some people, that's a long time ago, but it's really not that long ago.
Right.
My grandmother was born in 1938. She's still living.
My grandfather was born in 1901. He's deceased, but I remember him.
I remember some of my aunts, and my grandmother has vivid stories about that. So generational wise, there's still people here that are my age in Longview that still remembers that time.
Yeah.
So the trust with law enforcement is a little bit different. So it's important we talk about it. That way our new officers understand that history. So when they go out there and serve our citizens, they understand that history and things they're dealing with.
And I think that's the reason why I respect the class of cultural diversity that we are obligated and we have to go through.
Absolutely.
Because we've had guys from all races teach that class. And one of the things that I enjoyed in it being I had someone who necessarily did not look like me stand in front of me and say, hey, this is the history of our profession and we got to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Right.
So we can learn from it.
Yeah.
And possibly move forward. Because if I encounter you professionally and I already know historically what my profession meant to you and your people, you might have an automatic guard up that I need to work to try to help you bring down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, it does.
100%.
The other progress is, I mean, there was no statewide standards back then. little research I done, basically you had to be a certain race, be associated with a certain political party, and you were appointed.
Wow.
And now we have TCOL, which is our state licensing agency. They give us the standards, and then we as an agency, we go beyond those standards, from written tests to psychological exams, to polygraphs, to background checks, checking character. We do all those things to make sure we're hiring the right people to go out and serve our community. So a lot of progress has been made there. The legal framework back then really didn't exist.
Yeah.
A lot of the case law that guides us today, 1960s, 1970s for the most part, were created, which guide how we do things. And of course, a lot of that case law is still being made with the new technology and things like that. But today, constitutional law, more accountability, and all of that.
And that's because America is an experiment.
It is
that we are literally trying it out as we go.
Yes.
And okay, this didn't work. We messed this part up. Okay, we got to do something to fix that. And as we go forward, working more towards a more perfect union, And I think that plays a huge part in why we do have the level of progression that you're talking about with the legal standards and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's because it's an experiment. And when some don't work, you try something different.
Absolutely. Like Clent talked about, knowing that history, it's also important to know the history of law enforcement also.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a great history. But we've learned we're more professional we've ever been. Doesn't mean that we always get it right or other agencies don't get it right. But we learn from those and we make those corrections and we move forward.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you, to comment on what you just said, I can tell you something that's helped me as, I guess, a civilian. So one, I really appreciated the opportunity. Shout out to Officer Brown for the invitation to participate in the Business Academy.
Yours really wasn't an invitation. You were kind of voluntold. Like, hey, you go through this.
As I was saying. But no, seriously, it helped to kind of get a peek behind the scenes. And something that I've learned to do recently, specifically since 2020, is, as tempting as it is to let the national landscape influence your local perspective, I was like, what if I flip that? What if I devote my attention, resources, time to understanding my neighbor, understanding my community, and then expand from there? Because if you watch and hear everything that you see,
God help us,
man, it will have you in a crazy headspace. But when you go have coffee with somebody, when you go ask questions, right? I mean, and I've known the two of you through community work. And I've been able to learn about your perspective and why you do it and what got you here. That's a big difference than what the narrative is, 3 states away. That's huge. Because what I learned about Longview, when you all talked about stats, when you all talked about some of the motivations and what you're trying to do, I hear Chief say it all the time, that the community partnerships are key.
Yes.
Like, we need to know leaders in the community. They need to know who we are. They need to understand how we operate. And so for me, I don't know, that was a game changer.
Michaela?
Speaking of progress and how far we've come, Chief, what helps us build trust in everyday relationships and not necessarily like major critical incidents?
Well, I mean, Clent just said it. It's those everyday interactions that our officers do on a daily basis. Since I've been here, we have never been that reactive police department that, okay, we've had a major incident, let's go out and have some meetings and let's go and start talking to people. That's just what we do.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a second thought about, are we doing community policing, so to speak. Every interaction from our officers, whether you're responding to vehicle burglary or you're responding to an incident that is stressful, we are still trying to provide a professional police service to our citizens. And it's the way we do that every day is what builds that trust. If I'm seeing Clent and I'm riding down the road and he's waving at me, I'm waving back, or if it's just that stopping by his office and talking. It's just little interactions. It's those interactions that really build us.
And building those relationships through those interactions.
Absolutely. And not only that, it's just just professionalism as a whole. It's just, and that starts with our academy.
Right.
Just training professional officers and teaching them and training them the way.
Training them to provide professional policing.
That's it.
And I would also add that I really wish our community fully understood that, like you say, we're not perfect. Mistakes are going to be made, but they need to trust that when mistakes are made, people are held accountable here.
Yeah.
They're held accountable, open dialogue, transparency. We make a mistake. We made the mistake. Somebody makes a mistake internally. We deal with it. We don't wait for a complaint to come to deal with it. It's all of those things. Absolutely.
And another area in which we are able to make sure that we have that trust is the transparency. I think that that's something that our office is very big on.
Yes.
With media relations. Michaela and I, we're pretty upfront, or at least we try to be.
Yeah.
With the citizens of Longview to kind of make sure that they know what is going on. It's not one of those where we're going to try to hide anything. We try to make sure that people do know what's going on, not just within the community, but even within the department. I appreciate Clent highlighting the fact about the Business Police Academy, but we have Business Police Academy, we have Citizens Police Academy, we have Teens Police Academy, because we want people to know what's going on, because at the end of the day, this is their police department. We just work here.
Right.
But the whole purpose of our work is to make sure that we have a safe environment inside the city where people can live, people can be their best selves, and have a high level of quality of life, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
No, it does. You bring us your problems, and we're here to try to figure out what they are and try to address them.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
I was just going to say, I appreciate I've noticed I don't know if it's a shift in like the communication, social media, especially during the ice storm.
Oh, no.
Because we don't want anybody to mess around and find out. But no, I appreciate that because it adds a different element of engagement. Honestly, the city as a whole, I think, has really, really been ramping up their communication methods. But no, you're absolutely right. I think that's important. Community engagement is, and this is across the board, any sector, any business, any effort, is crucial. We need it.
I agree.
So tying all of that in, what Chief Montgomery just said, Clent and Chief, this is a question for both of y'all. Why does history still shape, and how does it play a part, or do you think it plays a part in community trust, even generations later?
I think it does, because regardless of how long ago you think it was, it's really not that far ago, not long ago. Talking to my grandmother, some opportunities she didn't have, she's still living. She's 86, and the opportunities I have are night and day.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is not long ago. So I never had a negative perspective on law enforcement or anything like that growing up, but I was aware of some issues that from the past just because of other family members. That was from their perspective. But someone else that is not black or didn't grow up with family members who experienced that thing, you may go out and work in a community and have no idea. It's no fault of them, but they're going out, and you can get a little impatient with frustrations or lack of trust when police show up. But you got to realize that lack of trust is generational. That's from what maybe their mom experienced, and it's just passed on. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think that's why it's important for us to have those discussions with the officers. That way, when people are frustrated or a little hesitant to talk to us about different things, it's not because it's personal against you. It's personal against the law enforcement or the system or their perspective of what law enforcement is or represents.
Yeah. So, because that badge has a different meaning to every generation.
Absolutely.
If you really think about it,
And even the interaction was completely different. I remember as a rookie, as a younger officer, it spent some time now. Pulled over an older gentleman. What does he do when I pull him over? He jumps out the car and comes to the back of the car. Why? Because that's what they were taught when they started driving, when he started driving in yesteryear. Whereas now we tell you not to do that. And just because it was just a completely different time. And so I think the badge, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The badge just means differently.
I think although I'm talking about law enforcement here and what we're talking about is not necessarily a law enforcement related issue, but I still think it connects to the generational things of maybe the government or the way politics or whatever the case may be that affects us as law enforcement.
To answer your question, I'll also add to that, generationally, I 100% agree. It's not that far removed that we would like to think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if we do not engage with that history, we continue to pretend like this is not real. Because I think, and maybe I'll speak for myself, I grew up learning history in a very surface way. And it didn't really impact me. It was memorization of dates and events so that I could pass the test.
Yeah.
When I learned how to relive, when I learned how to use my imagination, when I learned how to put myself in a story, that completely changed how I saw history. It allowed me to be able to use my imagination to see history today, if that makes sense. And so when we talk about 1919, it's like, oh, well, that was over 100 years ago. But I was like, wait, I have a grandfather that was born in 1901 that I remember, that I lived with, that I talked to. I wish I knew this because I would have asked him about this. And when I see stories, which again, this is tied to because this is since 1919, this is East Texas. There was a shooting in 1955 in Rusk County with a young man by the name of John Earl Reese, 16-year-old. My grandfather had a role in that. He was the bus driver for the all-black school in Tatum, Mayflower. And when the same incident, when they shot him, they shot through my grandfather's bus and they shot through his house because he had a reputation of rounding folks up and taking them to the polls. And they were actually, I guess you could say, protesting integration, or at least the attempts to try to move that bar. But it's like, okay, that's not that old. My mom was in that house when they shot through that. My mom and my aunt were a part of those events. And so that brings things a lot closer to home. And so as long as we keep talking about our history as if, and America is not old. We're celebrating 250 years.
Yeah.
We are a very young nation.
Country, yeah.
Very young nation. So when we teach and talk about these things in a real, truthful, and honest way, I think it dissolves, or at least it can get us there quicker to dissolving some of these barriers, so that when an officer is having a conversation, it's like, okay, I get it, I understand that. Or when a community member is engaging with an officer, they understand those dynamics. And so again, it's to bring that history closer to us. And to understand that it does still have impact today.
And yet again, not to beat anyone up with it.
Right, correct.
But just to learn from it.
Correct. And that's a common misconception, because even when we started the work, our team, and I'll say this, to my surprise, we've not run into a whole lot of resistance. We have run into some. Most of it is just misunderstandings, ignorance, fear. Are these events shameful? Yes, they are. Did these events invoke all kinds of fear? Yes, they did. But can we still talk about them truthfully? Of course. Can we still heal from them? Can we still pursue joy? Can we still pursue peace? And that's why, we are prioritizing and making this extremely important.
Absolutely. As we get ready to close here, I really want to try to leave the listeners with some practical next steps. And so I'm going to ask both of you, what can we do as a department? What can we do together as a city to continue to build a relationship between us as police and the civilians?
I think for us at the PD, and Clent, you have a different perspective, and we'll definitely take your input on this, but I think we just need to continue doing what we're doing. We can probably look at some avenues to do a better job at doing that. And because leaders change, people change. So communication is regardless of any list you give me, if you ask for improvements, it's always going to be communication because our city is changing. People are moving in and out. Leaders change. So I think we just need to continue doing that. I think having people like Clent to interact with us and to come in and just continue having those conversations with our officers and continually putting ourselves as a police department in front of those people who have that information so they can understand us and we can understand them.
Clent?
That's good. I'll just add to that. When we don't engage with real people in real life, man, it changes so much. We have gotten to the point to where the majority of our interaction is through social media. And it's so easy to dehumanize when you're looking at these headlines, these algorithmic, whatever you want to call them, that are being forced to you, instead of going to your next door neighbor and like talking to a real person. And like that scares people. I know it because I have teenagers. And I'm like, no, you're going to go talk to that person. You're going to look them in their eyes. You're going to have a conversation because that changes everything. Am I saying it's going to make everything go away? No, we don't have to agree. But if I can at least recognize your humanity, then I'm more inclined to extend grace instead of demonizing you. I don't care if it's political belief. I don't care if it's religion. I don't care if it's gender. I mean, whatever the case is, like look a human being in their eyes and have a conversation. That will slow you down than being in the comment section going 99 to nothing. Mm-hmm. Because you won't say that in real life. You won't. Most people won't say that. And the average person, I don't believe this. I mean, we see crazy things every day. But I do not believe the average person truly desires to harm another human being. The average person. The average person does not have that harmful intent. So keep that in mind when we're engaging anybody in any profession, in any sector of the community. They're a human being first. Yes, they have on a badge, but they're a human being first. I screw up all the time. So I have to extend that grace to somebody else.
Well, I agree with you, Clent, on the context is lost through emails and Facebook posts and things like that. And back how you said you came and did the Business Police Academy, I encourage listeners to look out for our Citizens Police Academy or any opportunities they can engage and get involved in the city and learn how we work, because the more you can get yourself in front of us, you can ask those questions or those concerns that you have about what you're seeing. That way you can hear it directly from us versus getting that information from other sources and assuming.
Citizen Police Academy, we try to aim to do that in the fall.
Correct.
The Business Police Academy, we're doing that every odd year.
And the city has InView?
Yeah, yes. Longview, InView, absolutely, which is another way to learn about every department within the city. So we definitely want to encourage everyone to just get involved and learn and, put some names with some of the places and some names with some of the departments within the city. So yet again, we want to thank you, Chief Montgomery, for taking time out being here. Thank you again, Clent, for bringing your wealth of knowledge as well. We just want to remind everyone that remembering history is not about reopening wounds. It is about learning and choosing a better path forward. And we are committed to serving every resident here in the city of Longview with professionalism and fairness and respect. And we invite every single last one of you to stay engaged with us through our business citizen academies and teen academies as we continue to build trust together.
So thank you so much for tuning in and joining us for our From 1919 to Today Race, Law Enforcement, and Community Trust episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.